Hello everyone, welcome back. Story from r/petty revenge, just desserts. For over 20 years, I have hosted holidays at my place. My sister and her family live out of state but are close enough to come back for each holiday. Sounds great, right? Well, not so much. My sister and her family always go to her in-law's place for the main meal. Since her mother-in-law is not a great cook, they pick at the food and then invade my place for leftovers, which really means eating the entire meal I've prepared afterward. You might think, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that it has gotten to the point where my recipe for mashed potatoes starts with a 10-pound bag of potatoes, the turkey barely fits in the oven, the sides take up the entire counter, and I use an entire quart of cream for the desserts alone. It's a huge undertaking, and not only does my sister never contribute financially, but she also doesn't even have the decency to let me know whether they're coming or when. This year, I texted the family to let them know that my kids would be making the meal for just us and that if anyone wanted to join afterward, I'd have dessert and only dessert to share. As usual, I got a reply from everyone else, except my sister. Rather than chasing her down, I assumed she had received the message and went on with my plans. The time came, and the kids prepared a lovely meal. We ate and enjoyed ourselves, then packed up the leftovers. Over the next hour, a few family members showed up, and we chatted happily. Then it happened. Cars pulled into the driveway. My sister's family had arrived. They invaded as usual, going around giving quick hugs before heading straight for the kitchen. It took less than 30 seconds before my sister came out, clearly trying to keep polite since others were present, and asked where the food was. Me, aren't the pies on the counter? The bread pudding is in the crock pot, and the sauce is on the stove. Her, yes, but where's the food? By this point, the others were catching on and exchanging glances. Me, I told everyone we were only doing dessert. Did you not get the message? Her, you know we can't actually eat at Mill's house. We were counting on eating here before driving back. Me, well, I think there should be fast food open somewhere between here and your place. Her adult kids began trickling out of the kitchen, looking around as if a turkey dinner might magically appear out of thin air. Everyone else was practically holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. She made some not-so-nice comments about how they probably wouldn't find anything open and how it was my fault they were going hungry. Then she told the kids to grab something to eat in the car and stomped out. I don't know who lost their composure first, but I think it was my uncle who cracked and started laughing. Once we calmed down, the rest of us had a lovely evening, enjoying just desserts. Next post is from r/AskReddit, where people ask questions. What's the fastest you've ever seen a new coworker get fired? I worked at McDonald's in high school. We had a kid take the cash drawer, jump the counter, and run on his first day. The poor guy had fully filled out all his paperwork with his real name and address, though. A new driver/guard at an armored car company came back from her first route, and the person checking her in asked about a missing bag of money. Turns out, she was hiding it in her jacket. It was only $1,200. One guy got caught using the trainer's ID badge to access a printer to make copies of a prescription pad he stole from a doctor. He wanted to hook people up at his new office. This happened on day 3 of training, and everyone was already wary of him due to his strange comments and behavior leading up to it, so it didn't really surprise anyone. I used to be a supervisor in a factory that employed a lot of questionable characters. If someone stopped showing up to work, we'd process the termination paperwork, but out of curiosity, I'd usually ask around, especially if it was a good employee or someone who had been there a while. Oh, he's serving 60 days was a really common reason for someone to stop showing up. The best one was a guy who was one of our best workers. He stopped coming to work, reached out later, and asked for his job back. We brought him back on and asked what had happened. Oh, I did some dumb stuff. I'm out on bail right now, he said. 2 months later, he told us, hey, my trial's next week. I might be gone for a while. Sure enough, we never saw him again. Looked it up later, he had taken a few shots at his ex's new boyfriend, ruined the guy's car, but thankfully no one was hurt. One of my first jobs was at an amusement park. On the first day, we had a meet and greet to break the ice and get to know who we'd be working with for the season. Our team lead stepped out to grab some paperwork, and we had a chance for more candid chit-chat. As soon as she left, one of my co-workers bragged about using his brother's urine to pass the drug test. The next day, he was gone. The kicker? None of us ratted him out. He did it to himself. He was so proud of his feat that he bragged about it on Facebook, shortly after accepting a friend request from one of the park's social media accounts. Must have been out of it to not realize how dumb that was. This reminds me of a time our company announced a drug test. We'd never been tested before, so our GM, being considerate, gave everyone 30 days to prepare. During the meeting, one driver stood up and said, "I smoke every day, and I'm not going to stop, so you can just fire me now." The GM responded, "Okay, leave." The guy's eyes went wide. I don't know what he was thinking, basically calling out the GM in front of the entire company. He left, but afterward, he came to me, I was a route manager, and said, "I was just being stupid. I really can't lose this job." I spoke to the GM, but he said, "Nope, he's gone." What a poor decision. I started training a new waitress who got into a screaming match with a customer over how to pronounce quinoa. She lasted exactly 37 minutes. The manager just pointed to the door without saying a word. I work in IT, and we had a new employee starting on our customer service team. I met with all new hires for IT onboarding. While we were getting him set up, a female colleague came into my office to grab a mouse. The new guy stood up, said he had a mouse for her, and made a gesture toward his crotch. I immediately messaged HR, and security escorted him out. He was there for maybe 25 minutes. At a strip club I worked at, a girl came in to audition and did great. She came back the next day for her first shift and brought her boyfriend, though no one knew it was her boyfriend at first. He tried to fight the first guy who put money in her thong during her opening song before she'd even taken anything off. She lasted about 3 minutes into her first shift. At my last IT job, an older guy, 50-60-ish, lied extensively on his resume and in his interview. He somehow got the job in the finance department. When he arrived on his first day, it was obvious he didn't know how to use computers. He couldn't open Outlook, use Excel, or navigate the Office suite at all. His manager quickly realized this and let him go before noon on his first day. Fastest turnaround I've ever seen. We recently let someone go for something similar. There was a red flag my boss noticed during the guy's first week of training, unrelated to his work experience, but we decided to give him a chance. The guy called out sick for most of the 3 weeks of on-site training. When he went remote, he didn't do any work, claiming he had computer trouble but didn't know who to contact. Once we got him situated, we had to keep training him since he missed so much of the initial sessions. Even then, he refused to work, claiming he needed help, though it seemed like another coworker was doing all his work for him. After 2 months, my boss had enough and let him go. The guy claimed to have years of IT experience, but he didn't know how to open a Word document attached to an email. It was shocking.